Hey everybody, Mike Shenedy here with my brother-in-law Erik Skeans. We're over at the Freedom Training Center here in Chico, and just like I promised you a couple times over the last few weeks, I finally am able to have him here in person so we can hear some of the stories of faith that he has experienced over the last couple of years with his business. And well, I'll let you just do it, Erik.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and let him start.
I think where it'd be a good start is in 2016 when you guys had introduced me to the Financial Revolution series from Erik Skeans. My wife and I at the time been really involved in listening to that, and I was working for a local feed store, and but my wife and I, we knew we wanted to have our own business, and so there was a Rite Aid going out of business because they were building a new store and they were liquidating all the equipment. So one of the things that I'd done is I'd gone in there and they had these old Baskin Robbins ice cream freezers, and so not knowing what kind of business to do or ideas, I called her up. We came down, looked at it, and one of the things that she said was, I just don't feel right about it. I'm like, hey, that's okay. And she said, can we just agree not to spend any money until we finish watching the DVD series, Financial Revolution?
All right.
And this was on a Saturday. And so I was like, oh, that sounds good. And so I said, well, let's try this. Let's sow some seed on this. And one of the things that she said was, I said, I want to believe for business assets. And she said, well, how do you know even what business assets to do if we don't have business ideas? I'm like, well, you sow for the idea, I'll sow for the assets. I'll believe for the assets. Okay, so Sunday morning we cut a check and wrote that in the memo section of the check. Mm-hmm. So on Tuesday morning, I was on Craigslist of all things, and I never get on the internet. I just don't have time for that. But for some reason, anyway, I got on Craigslist and I saw this advertisement for free restaurant equipment. So that's interesting. We agreed not to spend any money,
right? So
I get free equipment. So anyway, I pull up this ad. There's no contact information. So I'm like, oh, it's a scam. So anyway, I replied to the email because you can reply to the email.
Yep.
So I just fired off an email. I said, hey, if you still got the equipment, here's my phone number.
Wow.
And I just kind of dismissed it, thinking, nobody does that, and there's no contact information. Anyway, 7:00 on Tuesday night, this guy calls me up and he says, hey, I got your message and I have all this equipment. And he's in South Lake Tahoe. It's about 3.5 hours from where I live. And he said, you called me first, but I have somebody that's coming tomorrow at 1:15 that's going to come get it if you don't want it. I said, well, what time do you get up? Because I'm thinking that there's got to be a sense of urgency here. I need to run towards this opportunity and seize the opportunity immediately.
Right.
He said, 5:30, I'll be there. So we were out of town. We drove home. I hooked up the trailer. We slept for 2 hours, and I got my wife and kid up at 1:00 in the morning. We drive to South Lake Tahoe. We get this equipment. So I don't talk to this guy about God. I don't mention anything about sowing for this stuff. And I'm loading up the equipment, and he says to me out of the blue, he says, yeah, I was going to sell this stuff. And I looked right at him and said, well, I'm glad you're not, because I don't have any money. and he says, yeah, here's the really weird thing. 3 days ago, God told me to give this stuff away for free. And that was the day that we sowed our seed and sowed the check.
Exactly.
From Saturday to Tuesday. So, so pretty amazing. And there's a lot of stories. But one thing that's kind of cool. So anyway, I started this restaurant in Susanville, and I've been open about a year or so, and I've got staff there that really don't know God and how how all this stuff works, but they're watching,
Right.
and they know how I got all the equipment.
Yeah.
So they're bugging me to get a flat top grill, and all the things that we could do with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened for a while and I thought about it. So then I had a conversation with them. I said, no, look, I said, you know how we got this other equipment. I said, if we ask for this, I said, now, I'm not saying we're going to get one for free. I'm not opposed to buying it, but if we ask for one, we're going to get one. And then that's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. So are you guys sure that we really want to incorporate a flat top grill into the operation? So yeah, we want to do that. Oh, okay. So well, we'll just all agree right now that we're going to get a flat top. And so it wasn't very specific on that. I just do that. So about 3 days after that, I mentioned in passing to one of my vendors that, yeah, I'm going to be incorporating flat top and I'm going to be looking at some different products. And he says, well, I've got one out in the workshop. I said, really? And he said, yeah, it's 6 foot. And, what do you want for it? He's like, I'll just give it to you.
Valuable.
Okay, that's $10,000 flat top. 6 foot, all the bells and whistles. Thinking, wow, okay, so that's cool, and was in agreement to get this thing, and 6 foot, and free. So it's like, well, God provided this thing, right? So I get it over to the shop, over to the restaurant, and I got it out back, and I've got this 7 foot hood, and I've got the range, and I've got a couple pieces of equipment that are under the hood, and I don't know how this is going to work or fit under this hood, right? Yeah. So this goes on for a month, and I'm just really wrestling with this. I'm like, God gave me this thing for free. How am but anyway, I haven't hooked it up because I'm going to have to eliminate something or change some of the configurations. So on a Saturday morning, I'm in the we get in there at 3 a.m. We open at 4:30, and so about 3:30, I've got one of my staff with me, and I'm listening to Erik Skeans, and he's talking about the part where he says your prayer and petition. Mm-hmm. A lot of people stop at the petitions, the details,
right? Specific.
And it was just a total eye-opening aha moment. I stopped. I paused the CD, and I looked right at my team member, and I said, Niles, I made a mistake. I wasn't specific. And the reason we have a 6 foot flat top out here is because I said, so you're a witness. Mm-hmm. I want a 4 foot flat top with a 24-inch deep cooking surface and thermostatic controls. And he kind of looked at me, and I said, I made a mistake. You're a witness. Went and restarted the CD. That was on Saturday morning. Tuesday morning. Oh, I should back up. So the Thursday before Saturday, mm-hmm. I had talked about knew I couldn't use this. So I told my wife at the time. I said, hey, I'm gonna give this flat top away. Mm-hmm. She said, why don't you sell it and use the money to buy the one you want? I said, right. No. I said, I got this. God gave this to me. I'm gonna sow it back into the kingdom. I'm just gonna give it away, and then I'll get the right one. So then Saturday, I realized I made the mistake, and I gave my petition with the specific details. Yeah. Tuesday morning, guy walks into my shop that I knew was a farmer, and he was a customer of mine from the feed store. But I also knew he did some cooking on the side, and I said, hey Joe, do you want this? I got this flat top out back. Do you know anybody that could use it? Your local church, or Mm-hmm. He said, well, I need one. That's out back. You can have it. So, hey, really? I'm like, yeah, just go ahead. And so anyway, then I invited him into the shop, and I'm showing him around. Hey, you want to see what I'm doing in the kitchen? And he said, what are you gonna do here? And I said, well, I've already plumbed this. I'm gonna put a flat top here, but this one's too big. Right. And he said, well, I have a flat top. Really? I said, well, I'm looking for something pretty specific. I said, I want 4 feet by, and I want a 2-foot cooking surface. So I'm pretty sure I got one. I don't even mention the thermostatic controls in my petition to this point. I said, well, go measure it, Joe, and if it's, I'll be out after I close, and if it's right, I'll buy it. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, okay. Well, he calls me, and it's 24 inches deep on the cooking surface. I said, okay, I'll come look at it. So I get out there, and it's got thermostat controls. So it's exactly
what you prayed for.
Exactly what I prayed for. And I've been looking for something for a long time. I hadn't been able to find anything anywhere in the region that I was at. So long story short, that then he wouldn't even let me buy it. He's like, no, you just need to take it. So I shared with him my petition and all that. So, he was encouraged, I was encouraged in our faith and all that. It was awesome. So before I got that to the shop, now I know I need to convert it to propane.
All right.
And, I had the Ansel fire system wired a month and a half earlier because I knew I was going to get a flat top. I just didn't know I was going to be getting these things for free. And so, but the guy that did the work couldn't sign off on the final paperwork because I didn't have the equipment. Right. So he said, just call me when you get it so that you'll be in compliance. Not a problem. So the day after, on Wednesday, I don't have the flat top yet, but I know I'm going to need to convert it and get all that work done. But Wednesday, the flames on the range in the restaurant and on the steam table, everything turned yellow, and they're supposed to burn blue for those who don't know. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, that's really weird. So shut the gas off, called the city, and the city guy comes out, and it's like the car that's making the noise you take to the mechanic. Right. So he gets out there and says, everything checks out, everything's fine, let's turn it back on, and everything's working fine. So I said to the tech, I said, hey, while I got you here, I said, I'm going to get this laptop, this propane. I need to convert it. And he said, oh, I can do that for you. Thinking, that's great. I've got an account with the city, thinking they can bill me. And I'm like, well, how much do you think that's going to run? He's like, oh, I'll just do it for you. That's a free service. Nice. So just let me know when you get it set up here, and I'll come do it. So Friday, had it set up, and he came out and he hooked it all up. And so now it's been hooked up for 5 minutes. Now I'm not compliant yet for the city and all that because I have to have the guy that did the Ansel system sign off the final report for the fire marshal and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm calling the guy and he lives about an hour and a half away because I can't use it yet legally. Can't use it legally. I'm calling, the phone's ringing, and he walks right through the door. I'm like, I'm calling you. What are you doing here? You're scaring me. And so I was just coming back from a service call, and I'm like, hey, I need you to write the final report. This has been hooked up for 5 minutes. And so, he's an hour and a half away. I'm thinking service call. So I'll do that for you right now. I'm like, well, how much do you need? I'll go write a check while they're making your lunch. He said, oh, I'll just do it for you. Let me buy you lunch. And so I got this flat top.
Yep, just the size you needed.
Exactly what I needed. I got it converted for free. Mm-hmm. The Ansel system report was all done within 5 minutes after it was hooked up. The blessing had no trouble added to it, and you couldn't coordinate all that.
No.
And so, God's amazing, and I can go on and on about more stories about how I've got all the free restaurant equipment to start my business. I had another buddy that had a bunch of restaurant equipment. He's a franchise owner for KFC, and he had some equipment for me to start with, and then I went down there to get that, and he added all these other things, and then he just, well, I'm just going to give it to you. So this is all because of sowing.
Yes.
Sowing for this stuff. And I'm not saying you get all this stuff for free. Right. I'm just saying that's what happened for me.
Yep.
So God is good.
That's a pretty amazing story. And he mentioned a couple times about Pastor Gary Cassie. This is, sort of our world was rocked a bit with faith and reading Gary's material and actually hearing him in person. He came to Chico, where we're at now, Chico, California, and talked. And we read his book. It's called The Financial Revolution. If you're interested in picking up that book, you can buy it through their faithlifechurch.org website. But fantastic material, because he gives all these stories and he talks about how this stuff happens. And you heard Erik talk about sowing a seed. What does that mean, sowing a seed? I mean, you go out there and sow some seeds in the ground and watch them grow. And it's like, well, yeah, that's really kind of how it works, right? I mean, sort of, we know that we can take a seed, just to say a cherry tree, and put it in the ground. And eventually, with food and water in the right conditions, right, it grows into a tree and it produces fruit. How many seeds does that cherry tree produce? A lot. Hundreds. I've had cherry trees in my property. I don't have one right now, but in our last house, we had a cherry tree, and I planted it as a little seedling, and it had nothing on it, and it came from one seed, and it produced thousands and thousands of seeds. Well, God says that's what you can do with your finances. If you sow your finances, if you give of yourself, the thing that you use to acquire stuff, right? Like how would Erik have acquired a grill normally, or a flat top? With money, right? Or how would he open a restaurant or get all these different things done? Usually it's with money. So what we do is we sow the seed, give some money, and we like to sow toward faith organizations, people who we know are going to be praying with us, standing with us in faith. Mm-hmm. And then watch what God does, because this is really happening. And I've told you stories about how we also did the same thing. But this is just another example. I've been talking about it for a while, to have Erik give you kind of his stories about starting this restaurant. If you're ever in Susanville, California, you got to stop by Stone House, because that's his place, around the main road there. Thanks, Erik. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. All right, we're signing off now, and we'll be back again next week.